All right, let's dive into one of the most game-changing books out there on behavior change, Atomic Habits by James Clear. In this explainer, we're going to break down the core ideas and really get into how these tiny, almost invisible changes can stack up to create some truly incredible results in your life.
So let's start with something I think we've all felt. You know that feeling? You start a new habit, you're super motivated, you're doing it every single day, and then you look in the mirror or at the scale or at your bank account, and nothing. It feels like you've made zero progress. Well, that huge gap between what you think should happen and what's actually happening, that's what James Clear calls the valley of disappointment. And honestly, it's the exact spot where most people throw in the towel, usually right before things are about to take off.
So, the big question is, how do you get through that valley? Well, the book's entire foundation rests on this one incredibly powerful idea, the magic of getting just 1% better every day. It sounds almost laughably simple, right? But trust me, its impact is massive. And check out the math on this because it's kind of mind-blowing. If you get just 1% better each day for a whole year, you don't just end up a little bit better, no. Thanks to the power of compounding, you actually end up nearly 37 times better. That is the wild, hidden magic of these tiny, tiny improvements. And this isn't just theory. It works in the real world. Take the British cycling team. For like 100 years, they were, okay, pretty mediocre. But then a new director came in with this idea he called the aggregation of marginal gains. It was all about finding dozens of tiny things to improve by just 1%. We're talking everything from the design of the bike seats to the kind of massage gels they used to even, get this, the best way to wash their hands to not get sick. Individually, none of these things made a huge difference, but when you added them all up, wow, it compounded into total and complete dominance in their sport. Okay, so that idea leads us right into one of the biggest mindset shifts in the whole book, this concept of focusing on your systems instead of your goals. It sounds like a small change, but it completely flips the script on how you think about making progress. Clear really nails it with this quote. Think about it for a second. In pretty much any area of life, the winners and the losers, they often have the exact same goal, right? Every single athlete at the Olympics wants to win a gold medal. The goal isn't what separates them. The thing that actually makes the difference is the system. You know, the collection of daily habits they stick to day in and day out. Look, goals are awesome for figuring out where you want to go. They give you a direction. But it's the systems that actually get you there. A goal is a one-time thing, right? Like, I want to run a marathon. But once you cross that finish line, what happens then? The motivation can just evaporate. A system, on the other hand, is the process. It's, I run 3 times a week. That's something that keeps you going and delivering results long after the big event is over. All right, so if we all agree that systems are the way to go, how in the world do you build a good one? Well, this is where James Clear gives us this super practical, easy-to-remember toolkit. He calls it the 4 laws of behavior change. This is really the nuts and bolts of the book. So these 4 laws are basically your playbook for building any good habit. And what's really cool is that if you want to break a bad habit, you just slip them on their head. You make it invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. So let's walk through each one. First up, law number 1, make it obvious. This one is all about the cues in your environment. And the truth is, our surroundings have way more power over our actions than our willpower does. It's simple, really. If you want to start playing the guitar more, don't hide it in a case under your bed. No, put it on a stand right in the middle of your living room. Make that cue so obvious you literally can't ignore it. This is such a great example of this in the real world. A hospital cafeteria wanted people to drink more water. So what they do? They didn't run a big drink more water campaign. They didn't put up posters. They just added more water stations around the cafeteria. That's it. And just by making water the most obvious, easy choice, sales jumped by almost 26%. They just changed the environment, and boom, the behavior changed with it. All right, on to law number 2, make it attractive. This is all about tapping into our motivation. See, our brains are basically wired to chase after things that feel good. It's that anticipation of a reward that really drives us to act. So it just makes sense. The more attractive you can make a habit, the higher the odds you'll actually follow through with it. And what's so fascinating here is that if you look at our most modern habits, they're really just new, shiny solutions for very old, very human desires. Think about it. Do you really crave scrolling through Facebook? Or do you crave a connection with other people? You don't actually want to use a dating app. You want to find love. The habits that really stick, they're the ones that tap into these fundamental human needs.
Now for law number 3, make it easy. This one might be the most practical of them all. It's all about reducing friction. See, we humans are kind of lazy by nature. We are hardwired to take the path of least resistance. We'll almost always choose the option that takes the least effort. So if you want to build a good habit, you have to make it ridiculously easy to get started. I love this story from the book. There was a photography professor who split his class into 2 groups. He told the first group they'd be graded on quality. They just needed to produce one single perfect photograph. He told the second group they'd be graded on quantity. It didn't matter how good the photos were, just how many they took. So at the end of the semester, where do you think all the best pictures came from? The quantity group. It's because they weren't stressing about perfection. They were just out there taking tons of pictures, making mistakes, learning, and getting better through sheer repetition. They just took action. And remember how we can invert these laws? Well, for breaking a bad habit, you do the opposite. You make it difficult. You have to add friction. The classic example is the author Victor Hugo. He was on a crazy deadline for a book, so you know what he did? He had his assistant take away all of his clothes except for this big shawl. That way, he couldn't go outside and get distracted. He literally forced himself to stay inside and write. He made his bad habit, procrastination, almost impossible to do. And that brings us to the 4th and final law. Make it satisfying. This one is all about the reward. Here's the deal. Our brains love immediate gratification. And that's the big problem, isn't it? The reward for a bad habit is usually right now. The reward for a good habit, like working out or saving money, is way off in the future. So the trick is to find a way to give yourself a little immediate win, some kind of satisfaction right after you do your good habit. So we've got these 4 laws and they're super powerful, but they all build up to what is maybe the deepest, most important idea in the entire book. This isn't just about tweaking your behaviors. It's about changing your identity. It's about who you become. See, the ultimate goal isn't just to read a book. It's to become a reader. It's not to run a marathon. It's to become a runner. When your habits become a part of your identity, everything changes. You're not forcing yourself to do something anymore. You're just being you. You're simply acting like the type of person you believe you are. That's the most powerful motivation there is. So that really brings us to the core question you should ask yourself. Who do you want to become? Don't start by asking, what habit do I want? Start with, what kind of person do I want to be? And then you work backwards from there. Every single time you perform that tiny habit, you're casting a vote for that new identity. So what's the next step? The biggest thing to remember is that this is never really done. It's not about a quick fix. It's about a lifelong process of making small, consistent improvements. You know, pushing through that valley of disappointment we talked about at the beginning, it can feel like you're a stone cutter, just hammering away at a huge rock. You might hit it 100 times and see nothing, not even a tiny crack. But then, on that 101st hit, it splits right in 2. And you know what? It wasn't that last hit that did it. It was all the hits that came before it. Every single one of your 1% improvements is one of those hammer blows. So just keep swinging.